Hello, good morning, everybody. How are you today? We are back, excuse me, for another Bible story reading, and we are going to finish up the book of Esther today. So chapters 9 and 10 are what we are going to read. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome. Here's what we do here. We go through the different stories of the Bible for people who don't know them. Maybe you've only heard bits and pieces of them, or only know what somebody else has told you, or maybe you've forgotten what they say. Whatever the case is, we go through them so that you have an opportunity to speak about them intelligently when they come up in conversation. Because so many of the sayings and cultural things that we get actually come from the Bible. We found out that in the book of Esther is where the phrase "for such a time as this" comes from. To recap what we've gone through, because we are at the end here, Esther was made queen, and because of her relationship with the king, she was able to save her people from being annihilated. There was a great annihilation put into the works by a man named Haman, who wanted to completely perform genocide against all of the Jewish people. Did not realize that the new queen was actually Jewish, and her cousin, Mordechai, Queen Esther's cousin, who raised her, he gave her some information that saved the king's life. Because of that, he became very popular in the king's eye, and Haman was put to death for trying to slaughter all of the Jews because Esther pleaded for the life of her people. And the king gave her her request. Haman ended up being put to death. He was hanged in the gallows, and now the Jews have been able to stand against their enemies that were trying to rise up against them and kill them. And now we see that they are emerging victoriously, and we are going to pick up with chapter 9. The king's command and law went into effect on the 13th day of the 12th month, the month Adar. On that day when the Jews' enemies had hoped to empower them, just the opposite happened. The Jews overpowered those who hated them. In each of King Ahasuerus' provinces, the Jews assembled in their cities to attack those who intended to harm them. Not a single person could withstand them. Fear of them fell on every nationality. All the officials of the provinces, the satraps, the governors, and the royal civil administrators aided the Jews because they feared Mordechai. For Mordechai exercised great power in the palace, and his fame spread throughout the provinces as he became more and more powerful. The Jews put all their enemies to the sword, killing and destroying them. They did what they pleased to those who hated them. In the fortress of Susa, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men, including Parshandatha, Dalphon, Aspatha, Poratha, Adalia, Aradatha, Parmashta, Arisia, Aradiah, and Vezatha. They killed these 10 sons of Haman, son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews. However, they did not seize any of the plunder. On that day, the number of people killed in the fortress of Susa was reported to the king. The king said to Queen Esther, "In the fortress of Susa, the Jews have killed and destroyed 500 men, including Haman's 10 sons. What have they done in the rest of the royal provinces? Whatever you ask will be given to you. Whatever you seek will also be done." Esther answered, "If it pleases the king, may the Jews who are in Susa also have tomorrow to carry out today's law, and may the bodies of Haman's 10 sons be hung on the gallows." The king gave the orders for this to be done, so a law was announced in Susa, and they hung the bodies of Haman's 10 sons. The Jews in Susa assembled again on the 14th day of the month of Adar, and killed 300 men in Susa, but they did not seize any plunder. The rest of the Jews in the royal provinces assembled, defending themselves, and gained relief from their enemies. They killed 75,000 of those who hated them, but they did not seize any plunder. They fought on the 13th day of the month of Adar and rested on the 14th, and it became a day of feasting and rejoicing. But the Jews in Susa had assembled on the 13th and the 14th days of the month. They rested on the 15th day of the month, and it became a day of feasting and rejoicing. This explains why the rural Jews who live in villages observe the 14th day of the month of Adar as a time of rejoicing and feasting. It is a holiday when they send gifts to one another. Mordechai recorded the events and sent letters to all the Jews in all the king Ahasuerus provinces, both near and far. He ordered them to celebrate the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar every year, because during those days the Jews gained relief from their enemies. That was the month when their sorrow was turned into rejoicing and their mourning into a holiday. They were to be days of feasting, rejoicing, and of sending gifts to one another and to the poor. So the Jews agreed to continue the practice they had begun, as Mordechai had written them to do. For Haman, son of Hammedatha, and the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had plotted against the Jews to destroy them. He cast the pur, that is, the lot, to crush and destroy them. But when the matter was brought before the king, he commanded by letter that the evil plan Haman had devised against the Jews return on his own head, and that he should be hanged with his sons on the gallows. For this reason, these days are called Purim, from the word pur, because of all the instructions on this letter, as well as what they had witnessed and what had happened to them. The Jews bound themselves, their descendants, and all who joined with them to a commitment that they would not fail to celebrate these 2 days each and every year, according to the written instructions and according to the time appointed. These days are remembered and celebrated by every generation, family, province, and city, so that these days of Purim will not lose their significance in Jewish life, and their memory will not fade from their descendants. Queen Esther, daughter of Abihail, along with Mordechai the Jew, wrote this second letter with full authority to confirm the letter about Purim. He sent letters with assurance of peace and security to all the Jews who were in the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, in order to confirm these days of Purim at their proper time, just as Mordechai the Jew and Esther the queen had established them, and just as they had committed themselves and their descendants to the practice of fasting and lamentation. So Esther's command confirmed these customs of Purim, which were then written into the record. Chapter 10. King Ahasuerus imposed a tax throughout the land, even to the furthest shores. All of his powerful and magnificent accomplishments, and the detailed account of Mordecai's great rank with which the king had honored him, have they not been written in the book of the historical events of the kings of Media and Persia? Mordechai the Jew was second only to King Ahasuerus. He was famous among the Jews and highly esteemed by many of his relatives. He continued to pursue prosperity for his people and to speak for the well-being of all of his descendants. Whew. That is the end of the book of Esther. We made it through the whole book, guys, the whole book of Esther, all 10 chapters. Well, I always tell you there are 3 ways that we look at these scriptures. What does it say? We have to have reading comprehension. You have to read it or you don't know what it says. Number 2, excuse me, what was it saying to the people of those times? What was the history, the culture? We have to take everything into context. And last, what, if anything, is it saying to us today? So we see here that the Jews were able to go and defend themselves and to get rid of the people that wanted to harm them. God was with them in all of this. And Pardon me, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat this morning. And all sorts of people are now being killed, including Haman's 10 sons. His sons. Remember, Haman wanted to commit genocide against the Jews. He wanted every single one of them to become extinct. But instead, his own law, his own decision turned against him. My, how the tables did turn in that situation, didn't they? And so now, instead of all of the Jews being killed, those that would come against the Jews were killed. But it says that they didn't take any of the plunder. And they ended up doing this for 2 days. Haman's instructions were for 1 day. And on the day that Haman was going to do that, they turned against him. But Queen Esther had the king add an extra day. And so another day was put into the picture, the 13th and 14th day. And because of that, all of the Jews, after that, they rested, they rejoiced. They were so excited that they had been delivered from their enemies, that God had delivered them. And Mordechai has them declare this a time of celebration, a holiday, if you will, a very special holiday, a time of remembrance, a time for them to remember when God once again, like he had done so many times in the past, where God had once again delivered them from the hands of their enemy. Excuse me, I apologize. Today, that holiday, it was called Purim back then, and the reason it was called that is because Haman had cast lots. It's called the Pur, P-U-R, and he had cast these lots to determine which day he was going to slaughter the Jews. But it came back to bite him, and those days have now, their mourning has been turned into gladness, into a holiday, and that's where the term Purim comes from. And now that is celebrated for 2 days. It's a great time of feasting and celebration. They give gifts to people. I was actually in Israel during the time of Purim, and it's still celebrated today. Here we are, in the 21st century, and the Jews are still celebrating Purim. It's a very happy, joyous time. It's a reminder to them that God will always deliver them from the hands of their enemy. So Mordechai becomes very famous throughout the land, and he has favor with the king. He is the king's right-hand man, and that's where the story ends. I'm not sure what story we will get into next time, but I have really enjoyed the story of Esther. It's one of my favorites. It's so action-packed, and there's so many layers of things that we can learn from that, historically, spiritually. So I encourage you to study the book of Esther on your own and learn some things for yourself about that. But in the meantime, I hope you have a great day, and God bless you.